Off top, Maine has more coastline than California. Play the music.
This is the Domonique Foxworth Show.
All right, welcome to the Domonique Foxworth Show. We are in a state right now that has more coastline than Maine and California put together. The lovely state of Florida. I'm with my man, Charlie the Vanilla Snack Kravis. What's up, Charlie?
I know that you told me before the show that Maine fact. It is still the most stunning off top you've ever done, and I don't believe it's true.
It has to be. I think so. Maine is a peninsula, and California just has like the straight coastline, and Maine also like has. I'm assuming this. The only way it makes it possible is that there's probably a lot of curves and divots, and they are probably measuring all of those also. And I guess maybe California coastline is a little bit more straight. It doesn't have as many, like, I don't know what those would be called.
Indentations.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure there has to be some ecological type of word for it, but we'll go with indentations. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. I still don't believe it. I've been looking at a map of the U.S. for the last, 30 minutes. Because it's an incredible optical illusion. It's not like every side of Maine is surrounded by water either.
Yeah, I mean, it's three sides. Like, it's a peninsula, right?
Yeah.
We are a sports show, not a geography show. So speaking of Maine.
This is how we get here.
That's how we get here. That's how we got to this topic. My main man, everyone's main man, the future #1 overall draft pick, Cooper Flagg, making some noise.
Yeah, so our guy, Coop. 6'9", super prospect. For those who aren't aware, he has been dubbed, like many before him, the best American prospect since LeBron James. He seems to be a very, very athletic 6'9", ball-handling wing that is very unique in his impact on both ends of the floor. Some of his shot blocking that we've seen in highlights is insane. And he led the USA Select team to a 1-point loss against Team USA. This is the revered Team USA that's supposed to be like sort of the most impressive team since the Dream Team or the Redeem Team. But I want to ask you, Domonique. You are someone who's been on the record being like, we are not going to have an American best player in the world for a long, long, long time. And that seemed to be very obvious this year when Victor Wembanyama exploded at the end of the season and Jokic still was the best player alive. But is there a chance that the more you see of Cooper Flagg, a prospect of this caliber, you could change your opinion on that? Is this someone who could enter the conversation?
I thought there was no chance. And I've been aware, I mentioned this to you before, my brother-in-law is really into basketball scouting and all that stuff, and he showed me Cooper Flagg highlights on, Instagram, 2.5 years ago. So I've been aware of Cooper Flagg, and I knew, he's going to be a #1 overall pick, and I was impressed with him back then, his highlights mostly. I wasn't watching full games because I'm not an NBA scout, but I was like, yeah, he's nasty and incredibly comfortable with the ball, comfortable with his body in a way that kids normally aren't comfortable. But it was against other people. And it was like, yes, this is obviously a future NBA player. I hadn't considered that he might be, and this is getting far, far in the future, but him being 17 years old and performing very well against this outstanding team, and it's not just a team, it's the best defenders in basketball. He was putting up buckets on Drew Holiday. And it could just be a fluke of editing and selective posting. But you also read the articles that came out after this game, and it's clear that he's developed some level of respect.
The hype machine starting from the other players.
Yeah, and I don't know. Maybe the players are just being nice. And coaches, there are coaches in there too, but it feels real, and that combined with the highlights. So, you asked that in a perfect, sports television type of way, because, yes, I think that I would be willing to put on the table that there is a possibility that at some point in the future, we could have the best player in the NBA be an American-born white man.
White.
the white part.
Derek White.
And I had never even considered that. I'd always considered, when I had these conversations and you were giving me a hard time about saying that I don't know when the next time we'll have the best player in the NBA be American-born.
You turned out to be totally right.
Yeah, this was a few years ago we were having this conversation, and I was thinking about, who the up-and-coming stars were, and in my mind's eye, I have to be honest, what that person looked like, it wasn't like Cooper Flagg. And maybe that was my mistake because they making them in Maine now, which is nuts.
The main event.
That was my nickname.
Was it actually?
In high school, it was like the N1 mixtapes were kind of cool. So, like, our football team, we went to Patapsco Flea Market and made airbrush T-shirts, and we gave ourselves nicknames.
It's so early 2000s.
Yeah, it was very the N1 mixtapes. There's a lot of people listening to this.
And
who
the
appreciate
airbrush
it.
T-shirts.
Yeah, in the airbrush T-shirts. So we were the Wolverines. So we got the Thundercat logo, and we were like Carolina blue and black, where our colors beautiful colors. So we got the Thundercat logo on the front in those colors, the black Thundercat and the blue around the back. Our numbers on the back, it said I think Wolverines on the chest. And at the top on the back, we went with these kind of N1 inspired nicknames. And I was the best player, so they gave me the main event. And now Cooper Flagg coming for my crown.
Did you try and keep the nickname as you went to college?
It wasn't an actual nickname, to be fair. Like, it wasn't like people actually called me the main event. And we didn't call each other our N1 mixtape nicknames. It was just like some stupid thing. We decided to get these shirts. And it was like inspired by, so one of them was a big Nas fan. So he went with Born Alone, Die Alone as his name, which he's not it didn't fit him anyway. We had one white boy on the team. Well, we had more than one white boy on the team, but there was one white boy who got a T-shirt. And you remember the HBO documentary, Pimps Up, Hoes Down?
No.
There was a documentary on HBO called Pimps Up, Hoes Down, and there was one white pimp. And his name was Mr. White Folks. So we made Zach Mr. White Folks. He was our tight end. And he didn't play on defense, though. But, yeah, he was Mr. White Folks. Those are the only good ones I can remember right now. But anyway, Cooper Flagg, 17 years old, putting in work, and I'm willing to consider that your question is not completely absurd.
Can I pour some cold water on it?
Already? Can we?
What do you think the odds are that the Team USA team was actually trying against this Team Select team?
Okay, so actually trying?
Yeah.
I think they.
Are we making far too big of a deal of these highlights because it's happening in practice?
In practice in July.
Yeah.
Against
a team that knows they're going to win a gold medal.
Right. I think that could be fair. However, that doesn't change how excited I am when it seems clear that, and again, I wasn't at the game, but it seems like there's one story out of this game. Mm-hmm. And it was a story that was unexpected. There were going to be stories coming out of this is the second game that they played. Mm-hmm. The first game, he was hitting some good shots, but it seems clear that there's one story coming out of this game. And the one story coming out of this game is most people seem like they are surprised at how effective Cooper Flagg is. Yes, it's hyperbolic to put him in best player in the NBA conversations, but it's way down the road. And if I take into consideration all the things you said, I would say that his ability combined with his height, his style of play, which I presented a theory about his style of play earlier, but his style of play is...
For our audience, what's your theory on his style of play?
So I believe that you don't get Cooper Flaggs unless they're outside of major metropolitan areas. I think that there is inherent bias and prejudice in our society, and Cooper Flaggs in metropolitan areas are told to go play baseball.
So
or post up.
If he was from Southern California, he's throwing 98.
You disagree?
No, I'm just clarifying for the listener.
Yeah, he is. They would not say Cooper Flagg keep hooping, or if they did, I don't know that he would be allowed to develop the skills. And that's why you see a lot of the Euros learning how to play in a place where there is less inherent bias. It's kind of a ridiculous theory, but it holds up. You look at the best basketball players of all time, white American basketball players of all time. Ain't none of them from Detroit.
I mean, yeah, we went through this. Larry Bird from French Lick, John Havlicek from Ohio, Kevin McHale from Minnesota, and on and on and on. Jerry West from West Virginia.
I think
Pete Maravich from Alkeepa, Pennsylvania. It goes on. The list goes on and on and on.
I think Chris Mullen was the best player from a major metropolitan area.
You keep doing this. You're disrespecting Bob Cousy.
Oh, the man, Coos. He's from Manhattan, right?
Yeah, he would give you the business.
What year was Coos playing? I feel like there were some other things going on.
The 1960s.
Yeah, 60s in the NBA.
Yeah.
So he was coming up in the 40s and 50s.
Bob Cousy, the flagrant disrespect. I'm going to sound like Bob Ryan right now. The flagrant disrespect for Bob Cousy, who made 10 first-team All-NBAs in a row from 1952 to 1961.
There's no disrespect. I'm just saying the circumstances in the country. My is born post-integration is my belief. Because it's the same impact as you are in a segregated society. So, yeah, Bob Cousy's straight. I'm down with Bob Cousy. He did his thing. He can hoop. And also, there's exceptions to the rule. Chris Mullin, example.
Yeah.
So I'm surprised because I thought you wanted to get on this Cooper Flagg hype train with me because he is nasty.
I have more cold water to throw on it.
Oh, more. He's 6'9" and athletic and handles the ball, can shoot. Are you going to make fun of his jump shot?
Yeah, he's got my Cooper Flagg experience, I turned on the McDonald's All-American game this year, and everyone's like, oh, Cooper Flagg, Ace Bailey, Cooper Flagg, Ace Bailey. And I was like, wow, that guy is huge and athletic and moves so fluidly. Like, he is Jason Tatum-sized already. He's so broad. He's so fast. He's so explosive. And I saw that sort of herky-jerky two-motion jump shot that might have two hands on the ball, and I was like, not for me. Nope. Cooper, your jump shot, not for me. Mechanics on that, don't love it. I mean, he's so young. He's 17 years old. The odds of him refining his jump shot technique are huge. The odds of him being physically dominant at the NBA level, based on what we're seeing now, are very high. But if we're talking about the rare air as a prospect, the Anthony Davises, the Kevin Durant level prospects that tier down from Victor Wembanyama and LeBron James, because those people in our lifetime feel like they're a tier by themselves, where it's like you looked at them and you're like, over, it's it. You are the one.
And we were all hearing about them way before, and Cooper Flagg has kind of just come into the public's eye last year, right?
Yes, and if he wants to be someone in the top of the league discussions, he's going to need to fix the way he shoots the basketball. I'm saying that now. I'm pre-dissing Cooper Flagg. I should be nothing but excited.
No, this is the problem. This is why Cooper Flaggs can only exist in places like Maine. This self-hate.
Don't you think it's hilarious though that it's a white guy that we're saying you're too athletic but you don't know how to shoot?
I love it. That's the closest thing we have to progress recently. I like it. So, yeah, I think your cold water is accepted, and I think I haven't put like percentages on likelihood. But I think the way I would refute your cold water, heat it up a little bit, is by saying, I think it's unfair for you to say, you asked the question, is it a possibility?
Oh, yeah, entrapment.
Yeah. You asked the question, is it a possibility, based on what we've seen so far? Absolutely.
Yeah, they don't make guys his size that move like that.
That are that comfortable and that big already and comfortable in his body and seems to have moves. And whatever percentage you want to say the Team USA was playing at, it's higher level of play than he's ever experienced, I would guess.
Better than Maine high school basketball.
I mean, I'm assuming he also has been on the AAU circuit. He's probably had some I've seen his highlights in these invitational games. He doesn't have a brother, too. Him and his brother are pretty good at ball. I think so. I think they've played in some real competition. So he's seen high-level competition. But these are the best guys in the history of the game, many of them.
Yeah.
At least the best guys currently playing basketball. And him not only seeming to separate himself as, like, the guy on the select team, if he was only able to, like, hold his own, I'd be really impressed. He seemed to kind of it felt like people came away from this game thinking, oh,
yeah,
this is something different.
The physicality at age 17. So we're from D.C. Or you're from Baltimore. You live in D.C.
Oh, yeah,
from the D.C. area, formerly the Baltimore Bullets, then the Washington Bullets, now the Washington Wizards.
Don't jinx it.
We are a dumpster fire.
Don't jinx it.
We have set up our team to be the dumpiest of all dumpies with Jordan Poole or Danny Avdia. You played well last year. Get out of here.
Too good.
We picked up Malcolm Brogdon. We're going to shut you down. Rest that foot until we trade you. Jordan Poole, take as many shots as you want. If he ended up in Washington, how excited would you be? Would you feel like you had a franchise-changing player? Like,
hell yeah.
Yeah.
I absolutely. I mean,
I would too.
Since John Wall,
100%.
the most excitement in the city since John Wall. Like, it would be
RG3 level.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking basketball level excitement, but yeah, it would reach football level excitement. It would reach quarterback. We found our franchise quarterback level excitement. Also hilarious that DC is called the Chocolate City, and our franchise player is going to be the great white American hope. It sounds great.
Taking us back to the days of Tom Gugliotta.
Oh, Googs. I remember Googs. He was nasty on NBA Jam.
Franchise player for the Bullets. I mean, honestly, the reason I thought RG3 is the most excited I can remember the city as a sports fan was the RG3 year and then the debut of Steven Strasburg. And that's what this, I think, could feel like for a city. And it doesn't have to just be DC. We're making this because that's where we live, but if a team that's been bereft of winning for a generation, those are rare in the NBA ecosystem. You get someone and you really feel like it can turn around, because there have been prospects that go into college, the Jabari Parkers, the Andrew Wiggins, the OJ Mayos, where it's like, oh, this is a guy. You get this guy, you're going to turn around. But like, this is a step up from John Wall, Blake Griffin, Derrick Rose, even, of someone who you believe. And I know Derrick Rose turned into an MVP when he was 22. I'm just purely talking about when he was drafted and the type of prospect he was. This feels much closer to Zion and Anthony Davis and even Odin, the hype that you're getting going into this. And like, we're now talking about 3 guys since 2007.
Yes, we're getting way ahead of ourselves. What about next year at Duke? Like, we talk often about how the deterioration of the college game has impacted the excitement of the players coming in. And we see when there is a Zion year or any other like single player that comes in and is pretty fun and exciting, it changes the way we talk about it. I think many of us were looking forward to next season, the college season, because we get to watch UConn try to get the three-peat. What about Cooper Flagg? Are you more excited now about Cooper Flagg for the Blue Devils than you were about the college season previous to this?
I'm going to hate him because he plays for Duke.
Yeah, you kind of have to.
But
I don't hate him,
that's not fair, because I didn't hate Zion. When Zion was there, I was like, this is fucking incredible. I was like, you remember his block on DeAndre Hunter against Virginia? Yeah. And I was like, that guy's going 4th in the draft. You just packed your 7th row. And I remember I went to a sports bar with Charlie Hume, old money Charlie from the Levitard Show, our old coworker, and he's a Carolina alum and a huge Carolina fan, and I grew up a Carolina fan, and it was the game that Zion's shoe exploded.
Yep.
And it was against UNC, and a couple of minutes in, and I found myself for the first 2 minutes being like, "Get him, Zion." Get him. Throw someone through the rim.
Oh, man, it's kind of like it's not the same. I was going to say how we are rooting for Carlos Alcaraz playing right now against an American Tommy Paul, but it's not the same because...
That's a dog versus dog matchup. Tommy's got that dog in him, too.
Yeah, but Carlos is so much fun to watch. I think you're going to fall into the trap where you're going to be rooting for Duke.
Yeah.
I got to admit that I think I also am going to... Don't tell any of my
friends.
friends.
Producer Kevin's going to yell at me about that. He's going to be producer Kevin on our show is like a world-class ball knower when it comes to college basketball, and he's going to be like, "Do not respect the sanctity of the Big East." If we end up in like a Sweet 16 matchup of Cooper Flagg versus Duke.
Don't.
Cooper Flagg versus UConn. Sorry.
Yeah, don't. So, producer Brian didn't go to UConn. You said producer Kevin. I'm sorry. Went to Georgetown, so he cannot.
He did. They claim it's like, you know how I went to Vandy and I'm like SEC whenever Georgia wins something. That's producer Kevin being like, well, we haven't won a game in 7 years in the Big East, but Big East basketball, the Mecca.
Oh man, does producer Brian, the Michigan fan, I guess he doesn't have to.
He's got his own set of traditions. The audience will learn about this.
Yeah, he does not have to do the whole...
He thinks all cheese tastes the same.
I was just going to say he doesn't have to do the stolen valor because his team actually won a national championship. Yeah.
What I was going to ask you about this is like, so when you watch a shot that sort of, he has a second hand on the ball and it doesn't spin, it's almost like a knuckleball shot. That's like very unusual for an NBA player. Does that give you any, his touch is great. Like we know he's coordinated, but does that give you any pause just with the players that we've seen come in where shooting is an issue? Ben Simmons being the most extreme. Right. He's not Ben Simmons.
Yeah. I mean, I think Ben Simmons' issue wasn't shooting as much as it seems like it was something mental, right? Which, I mean, maybe Cooper has something going on, but he seemed to step up just fine in this.
He's willing to shoot that shit.
In this very difficult situation. But I think my automatic reflex is no, because he hits him. But then upon further review, I would say that it reminds me a bit of, I've gotten into track now because my daughter's running and we're getting ready for the Olympics and all that stuff. So when I talk to her about her running form, and it's like, this form is great for the local meets, it still can qualify you for the regionals. But every little 100th of a second that you can carve off matters when you get up to the highest levels. And obviously, I would say Cooper's shot, the time it takes him to shoot, the consistency of the shot based on his hands, and is not going to make a huge difference in college. I think it could be an issue in the NBA.
I've never seen an elite NBA shooter that doesn't get rotation on the ball.
Yeah.
You just made me think of something with the track thing, and it's leading into the Olympics, and it's a story that we should all be excited about. The Quincy Wilson.
Oh,
from we're again DC area. Now we're getting very DC with this. I can't believe we already put Cooper Flagg on the czars.
He is. He's a wizard.
But so you just made me think of that, because this is this 16-year-old kid who qualified for the Olympic 4x4 team, who went to Bullis High School in Potomac, Maryland, or goes to Bullis High School in Potomac, Maryland. And the videos of watching him on the track are staggering, because he's not gigantic. He doesn't have a man's body yet. He's an Olympic athlete. And his form in the last 100 meters, when he's gassed running against the best in the world, totally breaks down, and he still is able to separate.
Yeah.
And it just makes you look at that, and you're like, this is incredible. And this is the way I connect this to Cooper Flagg, is that there's actual meat on the bone. Fixing these mechanics sort of piece by piece, it's actually just a one-to-one positive thing. It's like you watch that game, you're like, you might be the fastest guy in the world once you fix your form.
Yeah, that is one way to look at it, is like there is room to grow. You're competing at the highest level with these major flaws in your game. But the other way to discuss it is, are these correctable flaws? Yeah. If they are not correctable, then there is a ceiling for Cooper Flagg that's very high, but not as high as possible. I think that talking about Quincy is worth a couple minutes, even though it's not.
You just made me think of it with the change in it, because I mean, for the record, the button on Cooper Flagg, before we go back, it's amazing in spite of the lack of backspin that he's been able to become this athletic and this type of shooter, with the fact that it's wrong.
I love watching him play.
Yeah.
I also love the thing about Quincy that looks most unusual before you can get to his form falling apart, which happens for people who get really tired at the end.
Yeah,
of the races.
no,
but I know
he's 16.
Yeah. The thing that stands out to me, and this also happens because my daughter's 13, and where her birthday falls, she runs with 14-year-olds, mostly 14-year-olds.
Malcolm Gladwell's shaking his head. How dare you do that?
Yeah, we are.
She'll never be an elite hockey player now.
We're Epstein guys, man.
Hey, David Epstein.
Yeah,
guys.
to be clear, David Epstein guys. So it's 13, and at that age, for boys and girls, puberty hits differently, and so it's funny that you see the same thing happening when you see Quincy out there, because it's little girls who are 5 foot tall and stick bodies running next to women, and it feels the same way where I see Quincy out there, but the difference is most of the time the stick bodies get left. Quincy's hanging in there, and it is outrageous. And to think that he's not even at a college level of attention to form and detail and preparation. He's not even close to what his fully developed body will be. That is exciting, and being introduced to him, I think that's the coolest part, is getting him. And I know there was some controversy around him getting to the Olympic Games, but getting him in the Olympic Games and introducing him to all of America is so freaking cool, because next time around, the Olympics, he has 2 more, right? Probably 2 more. And he's going to be the star, and it's going to be so great, and I'm looking forward to it.
I mean, just this is one of those things where sometimes I think about it too, where there are guys with weird takeaways on their golf swing, but they're pure through impact, so you don't change certain things. And I just, with running, it's so unique that he's just going, assuming he stays healthy, of course, that he's just going to get stronger, and his form's just going to get corrected, and it's actually just going to help with a linear progression. That's the really exciting part, because the Michael Johnsons who have unique running form, that's way more rare than someone with a unique throwing motion or a unique golf swing. This guy is going to get better at a crazy rate.
Can you think of anybody? I think I was going to try to, but I think you might have nailed it with Michael Johnson. The only other name that came to my mind was Phillip Rivers.
Yeah.
It's people who have managed to have success when I know absolutely every coach And Phillip Rivers' story was like the ball was too small or something like that.
I don't know how he threw the ball accurately.
Yeah.
Like he threw with like world-class accuracy with mechanics that are not teachable.
Yeah, it was. I played against him in college. He was a year ahead of me at NC State, so we played against him once a year, and it was the first time. He actually, I think I mentioned this to you. So I started early at Maryland. It was because Phillip Rivers did it the year before, and I was like, that can be done. I get to leave high school and go to college.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think. I mean, there have been other quarterbacks who have weird throwing motions, but
not like that.
But they also have accuracy issues.
Yeah.
Like Vince Young had legitimate accuracy issues that were just most likely based on the fact that his mechanics were not repeatable.
So I think Cooper Flagg's shooting style is.
It's not like that.
Yeah, I would say that someone who doesn't know anything about basketball or like a casual fan would not recognize that. Mm-hmm. The thing about Phillip Rivers, if you were just introduced to football, you're like, huh? Why does he throw like that? I don't know that I can think of anybody else who's been as successful with as unique a shooting style.
Yeah,
Bill Cartwright's jump shot.
Yeah, I mean,
but he wasn't a shooter though.
Kevin Martin, Sean Marion, who turned themselves.
Oh, Sean Marion, yeah, Sean Marion.
Kevin Martin was a really good off the catch shooter with really really weird stuff. I mean, Tyrese Halliburton has a really weird shot, but he still generates a ton of backspin. Yeah. He shoots from below his chin, which is like it's very unique. I think it's like to me the crowning one of this is Jim Furyk's golf swing, or even Tony Finau now, where it's like, how do you do that? How do you reslot the club? And because that's what it all comes down to. It's like you see Reggie Miller had somewhat of a weird looking jump shot, but through the shooting zone, through the release point, it's perfect. Yeah. And that's always like a decent way I think to look at it. His is just, it's something that should be fixed. Otherwise I think it's going to be really hard for him to be a good shooter in the NBA.
Reggie Miller was my brother's favorite basketball player when we were kids.
Your brother's a troll.
And he practiced shooting like Reggie Miller with the arms crossing and everything. And actually turned out to be a better shooter than me, but he don't got the explosion that I got.
It's, yeah. Another example, Lonzo Ball came into the league with a really broken jump shot and was able to correct it. Completely remade it into becoming an elite shooter where he moved the ball so far across.
Yeah. He changed, though. I guess I was trying to think of people who had success that way, and I think Sean Marion is the basketball version of Phillip Rivers, where it's just like...
And he was left open so much that his were like, they were set shots that he had to... He started as a horrendous shooter, was able to make them at the end of his career, but he was never a great shooter. To me, it's Kevin Martin.
Yeah. All right. Are there... you want to do a...
All right. Moving on. Enough Kevin Martin talk.
No, it's not. Because I, to be honest with you, I moved on because... Kevin Martin, I don't remember his shot being particularly
traded
unique.
for James Harden.
I don't remember being. I'll just Google it. Kevin Martin shots.
Yeah, I mean Halliburton too.
I've seen Halliburton's, but again, Halliburton's. I don't think it looks so outrageous.
We can get a live reaction to you looking at Kevin Martin's jump shot.
Yeah, it doesn't do it for me. It's nowhere near as wild as you make it out to be.
Yeah, still weird.
It is weird, but it's not Sean Marion. Is my point.
Desmond Mason's free throws. My God, we could do a full. There should be a Pablo Torre finds out. Find out how he made free throws that way. Chuck Hayes too. You wanna move on?
Yeah, I was gonna. Yeah.
We can run through this quickly.
Okay.
A little bit more NBA news. DeMar DeRozan is a king, a Sacramento King. That's sort of the end of the big free agency period.
Yep.
Now that the dust has settled, and here's what's happened in free agency. Paul George is a 76er, so is Caleb Martin, who Izzy Gutierrez once called shades of Tracy McGrady. The Knicks...
You got all Miami in your blood right now.
Yeah, we're in Miami now, and it's like all coming back to me. The Knicks traded for Mikal Bridges and seemed to really establish them, but they lost Isaiah Hartenstein, who went to the Thunder, along with Alex Caruso, who was acquired in the trade. The Pelicans traded for DeJounte Murray, where we got the funny headline of Hawk to a Pelican. The Mavericks signed Klay Thompson. The Nuggets lost KCP and Reggie Jackson. The Celtics brought back pretty much everyone. Now that the dust has settled, is there one of these that stands out to you as the team that had the most impactful free agency?
I mean, I think most impactful free agency. This might be also, you're going to call me out, so I don't have to pre-call myself out. Paul George, I think, to the 76ers. Mm-hmm. I think it's the most impactful. Obviously, it's the same caveat that goes on all 76ers conversations. It's just been multiplied. Can they stay healthy? It was just Embiid.
Oh, I thought you were going to say playoff P and playoff Joel.
Yeah, I knew you were going to get to that at some point. But I think that the health issue is the biggest question for me for Embiid because it's hard to his playoff issues have always been on broken body parts and issues with illness and just all types of wild stuff. Playoff P has had great playoffs pre-broken leg and great playoff games, but not great all-around playoffs since then. So, yeah, that's the biggest question. What I thought you were going to call me out about is my square body bias is not appreciating the Knicks. Because I guess the move...
Mikal Bridges is not a square body.
I know. Mikal Bridges is not a square body. My point is, I guess that's the question. The impactful move is I'm thinking of who has put themselves in position to be Celtics competitors. And I think that Mikal Bridges' addition does a lot for the Knicks, but I'm not sure that it makes me think that they can take on the Celtics. And I think that a healthy 76ers team has the personnel to give the Celtics trouble.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. The 76ers, I'm not going to roast you for that pick because they were on the verge of it falling apart unless they pulled off the Paul George thing. Like if the Clippers had given Paul George the extra year and Jimmy Butler wasn't able to get his way out of Miami and LeBron stayed in the Lakers, the 76ers were going to be up creek without a paddle. They were going to be stuck with an aging Embiid who was probably going to get frustrated and be passive-aggressive towards the organization. They were never going to make it out of the second round or really have hope of beating the top teams in the East. This gives them hope. This saved another Daryl Morey situation where he's able to grab another star. And for that thing, I think you can say it had the most impact. Where I would go of what I think will actually affect the title the most, I would go with the Knicks or the Thunder.
Yeah.
Because I do think the Knicks with Bridges, the way that team is deep, that's the team that I think has the best chance of competing with the Celtics. And the Thunder are
Caruso and Hartenstein. Well, Caruso is the big one, I think.
I think Hartenstein's huge. They lacked size so much on offense. They managed to not just find a center who can defend at a high level.
Right.
It's someone who's such a willing passer, which is the way that team operates.
Right. I think the reason why I lean more Caruso is because the problem that they had with the playoffs is the issue that they addressed. And maybe the size, or I guess not even the height, but
I have a joke they're definitely cut from the show.
Good job. The point I was going to make before you made that excellent but inappropriate joke is that maybe weight of their center position has been addressed, but they didn't have height issues. They had shooting issues with Giddey. So Caruso
they couldn't get a rebound either in the postseason.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I guess I'm thinking about it from an offensive perspective. But, yeah, I do think that the Thunder – and also it's the East versus West. The Thunder's change does put them in the conversation. But I thought they were in the conversation last year. I could have seen the Thunder win the West last year. I would have liked to have seen it.
It's just such a different approach than the Paul George or the Mikal Bridges one, where they're like, we want to continue to have roster flexibility and all these guys that are solid, but we're not cashing in for the second superstar next to Shea until we find someone we really want. Right. Like they didn't make the move too early, and I think they want to see if Jalen Williams and Chet Holmgren take big steps next year.
And you said Pelicans too.
No, I said Thunder and Knicks.
Oh, Thunder and Knicks. Okay, I was about to say I'm not the Murray Pelicans thing. I don't know. There's still a lot of a question to Pelicans. The Mavericks, we're on the same page with Clay.
Yeah. I mean, it'll be a nice fit. I think he's still going to be a really useful jump shooter. They might have some defensive issues at times with older Clay, Luka, and Kyrie on the perimeter, but they were such a good defensive team. Like I think he's definitely helpful for the Mavs.
The Nuggets, are we done with them? I mean, obviously Jokic is still there; they'll still be good, but their issues haven't been addressed.
No, they haven't. They're gonna have to try and hope that those guys take a leap. The guys that the Christian Browns and Peyton Watsons of the world. Or they're going to have to trade a Aaron Gordon or Michael Porter Jr. if they can get a taker for Michael Porter Jr. with his back injuries. I just will never take them out of the conversation when they still have a guy who's so much better than everyone else in the league.
Jokic.
For the record, this Nuggets story is a huge thing of what Steph was talking about the other day when he's like, there won't be more dynasties in the NBA because it's a lot harder to retain your whole team. Yeah. And that's true. Like they didn't have the luck of a Steph Curry ankle injury contract. They now have these locked in huge contracts for Jokic and Murray and Porter. in ways that's restrictive for them, and they're just slowly being sapped of their resources. And it's like hard to move aggressively enough when you have a core that plays that well together with that much continuity.
And they didn't have the dynasty saver, Kevin Durant, come available
Totally.
when they needed someone the most. It could have killed that whole thing. I was just trying to troll you, but you agreed. It's a lot less fun.
That's like I mean,
it's a lot less fun. Shout out Isaiah Thomas.
It's impossible to disagree with that point, though.
Yeah,
Kevin Durant is really good.
Yeah. You want to do some Djokovic before we get out of here?
We'll get out of here. Okay. Novak Djokovic is like 3 years younger than you. He had knee surgery 3 weeks ago.
Goodness gracious.
He has had the worst year of his career in 7 years since he injured his elbow the first time. And we thought maybe Father Time was catching up to him, because it's not just that Djokovic seemed to be in a different point of his career where the last thing he wanted to accomplish was winning an Olympic medal this year. It was that there were two generational talents, like guys you wait decades for, that Djokovic lasted long enough that he was going to have to compete against them, and they seem to be catching up. That's Jannik Sinner and Carlos Alcaraz. At time of taping this, Jannik Sinner is lost in the draw. Djokovic is getting stronger. 3 weeks after meniscus surgery that knocked him out of the French Open. And he played yesterday, and the crowd was supporting Danish young player Holger Rune, who's not a crowd favorite,
right,
and basically using it to boo Djokovic, saying, Runa. And Djokovic got incensed, and then in his post-match interview on the court was called out to fans at the All England Club about disrespect, and he went right back into villain mode. What did you think about this? This is like the greatest player to ever play this sport.
I loved it. I'm surprised that his excellence hasn't won people over. But I guess I shouldn't be surprised because he is who he is. But I appreciate how committed he was to being the villain and how comfortable he seems in that role. If you didn't see his response, it was outstanding because they were going roo, but he interpreted it as a boo. And I think Charlie and I agree that it was meant, whether they were saying roo or boo, it was more meant as a shot to Novak than it was as a celebration of roo. And he took time during the match to play his racket like a violin because they were whiny.
And he the same way that the crowd was pretending they were saying to Runa, he was like, my daughter just picked up the violin. I'm doing the violin to her.
Yeah. And then in the closing speech, he called them kind of classless and said, that's not what you're supposed to do, blah, 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 blah. But I don't care about it. It doesn't mind me. I don't mind it. You can't touch me. And then he said, you can boo me all you want because I'm saying goodbye, which was incredible. I just want to know when in the match he thought, I'm going to win this match just so I can give them a taste of their own medicine and fully lean into this professional wrestling heel role. It's perfect.
Such a fascinating character because the early part of his career, when he started being like crashing the party on Federer and Nadal are like, I mean, they're Jordan-esque figures in the tennis world. And Djokovic came in without as beautiful game as Federer, without the huge muscles and the speed and the forehand like Nadal, and he crashed the party, and people had really romanticized that rivalry, and they didn't want Djokovic there. He started winning. 2011 comes, he surpasses them, becomes number one in the world. And he had this really weird thing where he seemed like Alex Rodriguez, like he wanted to be loved, and he seemed so disingenuous and fake. And he, for years, all the way up until the anti-vax stuff, which I know turned a lot of people off to him at the time because it seemed like lying about it. He got kids sick at a photo shoot, blah, blah, blah. He was deported from Australia. Djokovic also has had some other questionable political attachments along with the anti-vax stuff there are more reasons why people don't like him. Whatever you think about the vax stuff, it was a huge story. And since then, he has seemed less disingenuous. He's basically been like, he watched the fanfare for Federer's retirement. I think he must have realized, like, this will never be me, but I'm going to demand your respect. And he's leaned into this villain role, and he's been a much more interesting figure being honest and being okay with being disliked than he was when he was fake.
And 24, right? That's the number.
24 slams.
And he's the all-time leader. So
all-time leader. He's won every Grand Slam 3 times. He's going for his 8th Wimbledon, which would tie Federer's record. He has won every single Masters 1000 event twice. No one's ever won all of them even once.
Gosh.
400 plus weeks at number one. 8 full years being number one in the world.
Well, he better enjoy while he can because Carlos is coming for that. Let's go, Los. Only real athlete in tennis.
Um,
Shut it down?
Yeah, that's
Let's
a great place.
let's go.
Carlos is winning right now. I think he's going to win this.
Let's go hit the
match
beach.
against Tommy
Let's go.
Paul.
Let's go gallivant like we did. We didn't tell him stories of our I guess when we get back, we'll tell him stories of our Miami gallivant. All right? All right. This has been an awesome show. Thank you, Charlie. Thank you to the good people here at Meadowlark for accommodating our studio requirements. Thank you to all of our great producers, Kevin, Brian, Serafina, Megan, and Tez. And we out. Let's go hit the beach.
This is the Domonique Foxworth Show.